Welcome to the Third Degree Masonic Podcast, where we are always on the level. I'm your host, Brother Samuel.
And I'm your co-host, Brother Gabriel.
And today, craftsmen, we have a very cool episode with a very cool guest. But before we get into any of that, Brother Gabriel, did you know that we have a phone number here at the podcast?
We do?
We do. And today, we received a very urgent communication from a 262 area code. Brother was really worried about a situation happening and called us for help. We're going to share it with you, craftsmen. Perhaps maybe you can help them if you're in the 262 area.
Well, hey there, this is Brother Horatio Cabletoe. I was just down at the lodge, and it seems that someone's left the lodge door open, and the goat has got out. The goat is out and is running wild through this temple, and it's chewing up aprons. I even think it's trying to find its way into the secret snack stash. I think we need you lads to come on down with some goat treats and try to bring this chaos under control ASAP. So hopefully you can get this message and take care of this goat situation. Thank you.
Well, Brother Horatio, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to make it down there to help you with the goat situation, but we do wish you nothing but the best. And for the rest of you craftsmen, you can find our phone number on our Facebook page. Feel free to reach out to us, and we weren't expecting messages like that, but you know what?
It's perfect.
It's perfect.
It's perfect.
So now let's move on to the serious business, craftsmen. Today, I have probably one of the most influential people to this podcast. He has been helping us from the get-go, and we have been honored to have him as a mentor. Today, we are going to welcome Brother Jim Hall, the Traveling Man, from the Traveling Man Masonic Podcast. Without further ado, let's get right into that interview. And today we have a very special guest, the Traveling Man, Brother Jim Hall. Welcome to the show, Brother Hall. How are you?
I am excellent. Thank you guys for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, well, we appreciate you coming on. We've been fans for a long time, so this is kind of a dream come true.
It really is.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So, first off, Brother Hall, how long have you been a Mason?
So I've been a Mason just over 11 years. It's hard to believe. It's one of those things you blink an eye and it's 11 years. I was an EA yesterday trying to figure it all out. Now I'm 11 years later, still trying to figure it out, but loving the journey.
I feel like we all could kind of take something from that. I feel like we were just talking about it the other day. I think I've been a Mason for a little over 10 years now, and I'm just sitting here going, wow, time just flew by.
And I'm at about 7 or 8 years, but it feels like it's been a whole lifetime.
Yeah, sure.
And he's the master of the lodge right now.
All right.
I have a lot more gray hairs now.
So you're master, so you know everything in Masonry. That's the plan,
sure.
right?
Sure, we'll go with that.
Absolutely everything.
Love it.
So what is your home lodge?
My home lodge is East Palestine Lodge number 417. We are in the 24th District of Ohio, and if you're looking at a map, we're about 40 minutes south of Youngstown, and I'm about 3/4 of a mile away from Pennsylvania.
So,
wow.
Yeah, so much like being in Conneaut, you could spit into the Pennsylvania border.
Yeah, it's actually closer for me to go to a Pennsylvania lodge than to another lodge in Ohio in a different district. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Elwood Perry 599 is about 15 minutes from my house in PA.
Jeez. And actually, I've been to a Pennsylvania lodge. They definitely do things very differently than we do.
Yes, the first time I was there, and I feel like I should stand more. I feel bad for the master, you know.
Yeah, he doesn't sit once. Quick meetings, right? That's the dumb joke everybody says.
Yeah.
So where did you first learn about Freemasonry?
You know what? The very first thing, my grandfather had the most disgusting beige-looking mercury topaz, and he had the square and compass, and then my grandmother had the Eastern Star car emblems on it.
Oh, very
so
nice.
I saw that, and I was too young to know what it was, not really inquisitive, but my grandfather had a really sharp Masonic ring, and it always sat in my head that, that's something sharp. I don't know what it is, but you could tell the way it looked that he was proud of it. It wasn't just I hate to say just a ring, but you could tell it was something special. And the Masonic Lodge in Negley is actually right beside the church that I used to go to when I was a young boy. So it was kind of always there. One of those things that you saw the signs, but I never really asked. And then my grandfather passed away when I was a freshman, so I never got to ask that question, which I'm sorry to say I didn't, but there was always that thought in the back of my head about Freemasonry and that connection. So that had always been there. And, I moved to East Palestine, the same thing. I saw the square and compass sign, always thought about it. And then, National Treasure obviously came out. I talk about that. And come on.
That movie,
Come on.
That movie put us on the map for a long time.
And you know what the crazy thing is? They say, well, do you know the secret treasure? And I'm like, you know what? I'm living it, man.
Right?
I'm a Freemason. That is the secret treasure. This is the secret sauce.
You have to have quite the IQ to understand the Masonic underlines of Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah, right. Right.
Oh, geez. And actually, it's quite interesting that you and I both have a very similar story when it comes to our grandfathers being in Masonry and not having the opportunity to kind of pick their brains and figure out why they did it and how they did it and what made them decide to take the leap like we did. We're just kind of walking down the path.
Did you have any other family members besides your grandfather that you know of that were in Freemasonry?
No, and I've did some research on that, hoping that there would be, a diamond in the rough out there. And no, that I am the only one other than my grandfather. My father, he passed away as I was just joining the craft, and I never got to ask him why he did or didn't. So once again, it was I will get to ask them those questions at one point, hopefully, wait a few years down the road. But right now, it's a mystery to me.
We're not in any rush to get there, right?
Yeah, right.
Oh, geez. So, that's where you learned about it. What was it that made you decide that this was the organization that you wanted to join? What was the aha moment?
So, and I love telling this story. Anybody that's been on or heard my podcast has probably heard it 94 times. That's how many episodes I'm on. But you know what? I was working at a furniture store doing deliveries. I got a call from my boss asking me to come in on my day off. I told him no, because furniture delivery is hard and I'm tired. And, 15 minutes later, I'm thinking, we have bills and extra money would be good. So I said yes. I came in. And I worked, you usually had a dedicated driver and then a helper who would ride along and help. I was working with a different driver. Ryan Crescenta was his name. Never worked with him before. And we're talking about a mutual friend, and he said, I see him down at the lodge. I'm like, well, that's weird. I go to the Moose all the time. I've never seen you or him.
Yep.
And he's like, the Masonic Lodge. and it was like, green light went up, and I started peppering him with questions. And it's like in the EA charge, he was just as excited to tell me about Freemasonry as I was to ask about it and learn about it. And by the next day, he'd had a petition for me, and I'd had it filled out, and I was off and running.
That's a pretty cool story. It was like he was waiting for you.
Yeah, and once I joined, it was like a slew of. We could almost open a meeting with the drivers that started to join the lodge. I think at the high point there was 6 drivers or helpers at the furniture store that were Masons. So we would have people standing at the back of the truck, and guys inside would be going through our ritual or our returns, whatever it was. It's like, hey, you tile the back of the furniture truck. We have some real work to do here.
Yeah, we have real work to do.
Cool.
Yeah.
We had when I was growing up, we were in DMLA, and
Yeah.
I used to be like the assistant manager of the grocery store here in town, and all of the guys that I hired as stock boys were all DMLAs like me. So I would hire them out, and then we'd be back there and be like, don't you have an inspection coming up? Let's go through this degree real quick. And we'd be throwing beer onto the shelf. He'd be doing the master's part.
Well, you know what I love about this?
everywhere.
But the beautiful thing with that is, and you know, if you look back in the history, you'll see business owners or Masons going to other Masons, and you know, you may even pay a little more money for that. Why is that? You trust that guy.
Mhm.
And that's the same way in this situation. You trust those DMLA that I already hold you to a higher standard. So I know if I'm going to have you employed with me, you're probably going to show up and do the work. And I absolutely love it.
Oh, it was, well, actually, it's funny. The owner of the store was from Indiana. He was a Mason. And
Okay.
when my boss was like, yeah, he wants to hire these kids, they're Masons or they're DMLAs or whatever. Gary Miller was just like, oh yeah, absolutely. You can trust them implicitly, like hire them on the spot. And anybody he brings you that can show you that. And my boss was just like, what kind of cult did I just get involved with?
Right.
And actually, I had a girl come to me at one point. Her cousin was a Mason out of Cleveland, and she was like, "Hey, he's coming up here to go see his mom's, not doing so good. He's coming up for about 6 months. He needs a job, but he's only going to be here for 6 months." I'm like, "Have him come in, shake my hand, and as long as everything's on the up and up." He did. He came in, shook my hand. He was like, "Hey, I'm only going to be around 6 months." I'm like, "Just give me a week-long notice. That's all I'm going to ask of you." And he did. I mean, he was one of the best employees. I didn't get to know him that well because he worked in a completely different department.
Sure.
But I saw him every once in a while in the break room, and, I wish I could remember what lodge he was from, but he was a cool dude, and he did exactly what he, told me he was going to do. So
It's almost like reinforcing the old-fashioned way of thinking of like, everything's done with a handshake, everything's done with the promise of your word. And that's what we live. That's what we teach. That's what we do.
that's how it's supposed to be. And
And, well, yeah.
Absolutely.
I think there's a lot of people in the world that kind of don't. That might be kind of part of what we're missing nowadays.
Like the realty business, like you're not allowed to talk with the people that you're selling to, and you're not allowed to meet them. You're not allowed to shake their hand. You're not allowed to talk with them about things.
Because his house is being shown right now.
As we speak, there are people rooting through my drawers and stealing my spoons.
We're gonna find something Masonic and go, we can't have this house.
Listen, speaking of spoons, I have, I'm not leaving my house and my spoons go away too. I don't know if kids or, so the spoon thing is a very common problem in homeowners' lives.
See, now what you gotta do is replace them with spoons from restaurants that you go to.
Yeah, there you go. The cycle continues.
Let's see. So, going back a little bit, what is it that you remember the most about becoming a Mason?
Oh my goodness.
Like, did you like one of your degrees more particularly than the other? I mean, we all love the Master Mason degree, obviously, but...
Sure. For me, it's always been the entered apprentice degree. And you know what? It's one of those things that, it's first, my year as master, it happened to be my inspection degree. So, anyone with an inspection degree, you seem to always know your way around that one a little more. Not that I haven't done the other ones, but I think the thing that really set it off for me right from the get-go was, the entire week leading up to my entered apprentice, Ryan is just ribbing me about, the goat and be ready, and the secrets, and I mean, any type of thing. And when I walked in, he's past master now, but Rocky Bosley, he was currently senior deacon. He came in and he set down a pair of spurs, and he's like, "You're going to need these tonight. Just get ready." And I'm like, "Okay." And, I know they've been ribbing me, so I laugh along with it. But the most comforting thing, and I don't know why, I walked in and Rocky just leaned over to me as senior deacon and said, "Don't worry, I got you." Rocky's voice is one of those voices, it isn't. And it was just, I just relaxed and rolled through it. I really got to enjoy it because, at that point, I didn't know anything. When you get to your fellow craft and your master mason, you kind of have an idea of what could or couldn't happen, right?
Right.
But that first one was a complete immersive experience, and I just, closed my eyes and just let it happen and loved every minute of it.
Anything can happen, but it definitely made it a little bit better knowing that,
Yeah, you had somebody with you.
And
I
the
got you.
personality of the senior deacon can really change the type of experience you have too. Not in a bad way. I mean, but it can be reassuring. It can be interesting. It can be thought-provoking, terrifying.
The senior deacon for my degree was my dad advisor for Masonry, and he really took some parts in the degree very seriously. He reiterated to me that you are no longer in the kid zone.
Sure.
But I remember it forever, you're walking around and they're talking about some of the stuff and they're like, "Oh, this is all symbolic," and he's like, not at all.
Yeah, mind your P's and Q's.
You're right. No kidding. Sorry. I have not had nearly enough coffee this morning.
I get it.
So that's what you remember most about becoming a Mason. What is it about this fraternity that you love? What brings you back every day?
You know what? I think that it's twofold. There's two here. And the first one is meaningful connections. You'll hear me say that a lot anytime I'm in Masonry, because there's an added level of trust. I absolutely love the idea of me walking down the road, and if I saw you and didn't know you from the podcast or Facebook and all of that if I saw a square and compass on your hand, I knew that you had been through the same process and the same vetting that I had,
right?
And had been given those degrees and returned in one manner or another, in your home lodge. And without knowing your name, I already know enough about you that I have a level of trust immediately. And that's one of those things that those connections happen. And now, we're friends.
Right.
We may have only spoke one or two times, but now I have in my heart is a want to come see you guys and visit and enjoy this beautiful thing called Freemason. That is the first one. The second one, I forgot.
You need more coffee too.
No, okay, I got it back. That's why I said the second one. I'm like, come on, Jim, it's in there. Get it.
You got this.
I'm a comic book fan, a fantasy fan, Lord of the Rings,
Perfect.
Superman, Star Wars, all that stuff is just my game. I view my home lodge, any lodge really, but mainly my lodge, and you're seeing it as my background. That's my fortress of solitude.
Nice.
There is so many things in the world right now, and especially with election time, but in the world that is just absolutely pulling you down, just bad news and people that are committing terrible crimes and all the stuff, and people in general just trying to get ahead, forward themselves by maybe using you as a step, which really fries me. So when I get to go into that lodge and I'm with like-minded brethren that are all moving in the same direction and they all care about me, not because I can help them, but because we're brothers and we're on the same level, whether, I'm working with my hands in carpentry or whether I'm doing social media or whether I'm sealing a basement to a new built house. These guys are all together, and all that other minutia of the world gets put aside for a little bit, and I get to recharge my batteries.
That's pretty cool. I think I think that's probably the longest response we've ever had to that question. Usually,
No, but it's a good response.
no, there's another. I mean, usually the words we get are, "Oh, it's the brotherhood," and I'm like, "You want to laugh?
You want to expand on that a little bit,
Just
please?
a tiny little bit."
We can pick your brain and talk about that a little bit.
Yeah,
But no, you're able
Like,
to.
no, I know what I'm here for. No, and I really like that. I really like the describing the lodge kind of as your fortress of solitude, because that's, at least like for me, I know when I come here and I spend time with the guys, I feel like my batteries, I can be on zero the whole day. I mean, I have nothing left to give, and I'm grouchy as I'm stepping up the steps. I'm like, oh, I got to go through this. We're doing a fellowcraft degree. The second I come in and somebody cracks a joke at me, I instantaneously, my batteries are recharged and I'm ready to go. Let's get it going.
Oh yeah.
We've been there. I mean, we just had one, last week, 2 weeks ago, we did a fellowcraft practice.
We did the whole degree 2 weeks ago, didn't we?
Yeah, we did the whole degree. Didn't have a candidate, unfortunately, but we're working on it. Yeah, well, it's not, but
Right.
we're
Practice
working on it.
makes perfect.
We're working on it.
Be ready.
Yeah. And, I just was, I work third shift at a hospital, and I got home, I woke up, I got my butt kicked the night before. I was like, I really don't want to go to lodge right now because I'm so tired, but also in the same breath, this is the first meeting coming out of summer.
Oh yeah.
I was like, I haven't been to a meeting in 3 months. We gotta go. So then as soon as I'm walking up the steps, somebody was standing at the door playing pool, and they're just, I can't remember what they said. And I was just like, okay, here we go. We got this.
Right.
I'm awake now.
Love it.
It is interesting though, because we are kind of talking about brotherhood and fortress of solitude because you like hanging out with these guys, you like being in their presence, you like the work of the craft in the lodge as much as we all do. I mean, where else can you be part of an organization where we could come to your lodge and we would have that same feeling? We go to a lodge in Pennsylvania, it would be the same feeling. We go to a lodge in England or Spain, and it would be the same feeling. I mean, with an interpreter.
Sure.
Where it would be the same feeling exactly. I mean, where else can we get something like that?
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. It's the secret sauce. I say it so much that, right now you and I are on, and I could come out to your lodge or vice versa, or like you said, England. I'd talked to James Dalton, and I absolutely love him. Absolutely. I met him one time in 40 years of life. We spent maybe, I'll say 5 to 6 hours, because we had dinner the night before and recorded the next day, and we just messaged back and forth on Facebook, and I absolutely love him because he's a brother, and I know what he stands for, I know what he's about, and it's the same with brother. I use that as a long distance because England's a little farther away,
Right.
PA, or but that's the secret sauce. That's the beauty of it.
It's the brotherhood.
Yeah,
It's the pancakes. I'm not really sure.
It's the breakfast with Santa pancakes.
those are good.
They are delicious.
Yeah.
So, as you know, when you watch some of our interview episodes, we like to kind of transition the latter half of the interview to be questions about the fraternity, questions about your ideals about the fraternity and stuff like that. So my question firstly to you would be not pertaining to our ritual, not pertaining to the way we've done things forever. Sorry, I talk with my hands.
I see
Sorry.
that, but
I'm sorry. I'm tapping on the table as I speak with my hands.
Love it.
you don't have this problem.
I try not to. I do I roll my the pen, because I'll do the tap, and I'm like, no, the recording, we can't do.
Stop it.
Yeah. So if you could change something about the fraternity for a net positive, and I'm not talking about a ritual, I'm not talking about the things we've done for hundreds of years, but I'm talking about just something you see in terms of organization or in terms that you see some lodges doing, what would you say is something our fraternity could benefit from for changing?
Wow.
It's a good question, right?
That is a real heavy-handed question right out of the gate.
Right.
You gotta say, like, how...
I really like Charlie's answer when he told us he really thinks we need to get more out into the community. Like we've hiding in the background type situation.
You know what? I was not going to answer that way because we're kind of doing that, but wholeheartedly, like if there's one thing that Freemasonry in general could do better in, and some lodges are just setting the world on fire doing it. Some are not, and that's okay. You know, everybody moves at different cadences and lodges, but you know, I think the worst thing that could happen is somebody looks at your ring or your hat and they say, "Oh, what's that?" And I'm like, "That's square and compass. I'm a Freemason." And they go, "Oh, what's a Freemason?" That's the worst thing
to tell you.
Yeah. Like, listen,
I have been to a meeting and
I'd rather, yeah. No, I just think that especially in a small community, and I'm going to say East Palestine because we have 4,700 people in here, you know, 3 square miles or whatever it is.
right.
If East Palestine people don't know about East Palestine Lodge, then East Palestine Lodge members are disservicing East Palestine.
Yeah.
You know, we need to be out there. And I don't say that in a sense of, hey, spend a bunch of money and give a bunch of stuff away. If you can, I'd love it. But what can you do? Can you sponsor that baseball team? Can you put a ad in the football program? What are the ways? Can you update your sign?
Mm-hmm.
Update your sign.
Yeah.
When we moved to the current, we moved to a Lutheran church. The first thing we did right out front was put East Palestine Lodge 417, huge blue letters in the front. You cannot miss it. Like, make it a billboard, make it in bright lights, and just let everybody know everywhere that we're here, because that's, for too long, we have not talked about it. And there's two highways to go with that. We don't talk about it because we want people to ask us, and I'm 100% for that. You're not supposed to go solicit people.
Right.
But that doesn't mean we're not allowed to let people know that we're there and we're vibrant and we are excited and doing good things for men and for our places that we live.
We want to be vibrant so that people come asking us. You have to have both. You have to have both, because if you have just word of mouth and people not spreading the word of mouth, no one's going to come knocking, and you're going to have to end up soliciting, quote unquote, to get your numbers. But if you're showing your presence, if you're showing that this is a wonderful organization to be part of, you will have the potential brothers in the dark coming and knocking at the door.
Yeah, absolutely.
And actually, it's funny you say that, because we recently just got involved with our Chamber of Commerce here in town. And
nice.
Let me tell you how many doors that's opened. We have so many opportunities that aren't even... I even told them when I walked in the door, they're like, "Oh, you know, most of those are businesses. We don't have a whole lot of the charitable organizations." I said, "We can't give you guys a whole bunch of money. We can't donate money to every charity that pops up. I'll tell you what I can do is I can get you probably about 30 guys who will move heaven and earth to make something happen for you, and to help out in any way that we can. And we're pretty good at raising money too, but the president of the board, I remember he looked at me and he goes, "I didn't even know we had a Masonic Lodge in Genoa. Mind you," he goes, "Where's it at?" And I looked at him, I went, "Right across from the most successful business in town." And he goes, "I didn't know that. I'd like to see it sometime." I'm like, "Well, what are you doing right now? Let's go."
I'll show you the lodge.
And, he thought it was really cool. He's a young dude. I'm hoping if I keep going to these meetings, maybe I can, go after a couple of questions. And
accidentally drop a petition on his desk.
Drop a petition. Shameless plug.
Love it.
But
absolutely. Drop one of our podcast stickers on his desk too.
Right?
Bingo.
How you do it. Actually, I gave one of our business cards to the guy that came to inspect our elevator, and he was like, I've always wanted to be a Mason, but I'm moving to Utah here in like 3 weeks. And I went,
Go be a Mason in Utah.
I said,
That's
go
okay.
go be a Mason in Utah. He goes, that's not a problem. I said, they probably do things a little differently than we do, but it doesn't matter. When you come up here to go see your family, come see us. We'll hang out with you too. He's like,
Absolutely.
that's pretty sweet.
So, switch it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So, tying back to a couple of questions from earlier, because we were getting some of your personal Masonic history.
Yeah.
What do you have a moment that really sticks out for you in the fraternity? It's like, this is a moment where you're really proud to be a Mason, or you have a thing that you can pick that is your proudest moment as a Mason?
There are so many, and that's, I'm sure you get that a lot. Like, okay, here we go. But I could go right off the bat and say, my initiation or my installation as Master of East Palestine Lodge.
Yeah.
And I could go right up with, DEO, deputy. I mean, those are all unbelievably special and accolades that I never thought I would attain and never got into Freemasonry for. Sometimes as a deputy, I wonder if this if I
Right.
should have took the office, but that's the pluses and minuses of that. But I think one of the absolute most important moments in Freemasonry, and I'll tie it back into the Traveling Man podcast. As you guys know, podcasting takes a lot of work.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of editing and scheduling, and guys that forget that you're supposed to record and then they're late.
No, never.
I'm raising my hand because I was that guy today.
That's all right.
But there's it, and it's hard, and it doesn't pay well at all.
At all. Yeah.
Right? And there are times when you sit there and think, why am I taking this valuable time away from my family and away from whatever hobbies I may do on the side other than Masonry? And I had a gentleman, he's been on the episode, and there have been more than just one, but Brother Chris Hurt out of Arizona, he messaged me and said, I was looking into Freemasonry and found your podcast and started listening to it, and it gave me the confidence to join Lodge.
That's good.
And I told him, I'm like, hey, you know what? Keep up with me. Let me know when you're getting your Master Mason. And he went through and told me, EA Fellowcraft Master Mason. And eventually I had him on the show after he was out, and he's an active member of his lodge. I think he's senior deacon now. Chris, I'm sorry if I'm butchering that. I just saw a picture of you last night. But you know what? All of that behind the scenes work, all of that time, that scheduling, notes, editing, marketing, that's a huge chunk of time that nobody thinks about.
Yeah.
And all of that time, and that one gentleman said, hey, you helped me get here.
Yeah.
Man, that's worth all the time in the world. That's it.
Absolutely.
I really like that. And that's a great answer to have that be your proud moment.
Yeah.
Craftsman, thank you for joining us. We're going to take a quick intermission, and we'll be right back with the Jim Hall from the Traveling Man Podcast. Welcome back, Craftsman, to the Third Degree Masonic Podcast. Thank you for rejoining us, and thank you for rejoining us and listening to Brother Jim Hall from the Traveling Man Podcast. Welcome back, brother.
Thank you.
So
Good to be back.
glad to have you back. So we're going to continue with our lines of questions. That one that we'll move into next would be, do you have a Masonic hero or idol? And this can be someone you know personally, a historical Mason, and we've gotten a lot of interesting answers on this question. We've actually gotten a lot more personal connection Mason answers than I expected when we first started this podcast. We were expecting to get George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, that kind of stuff. But I love hearing the someone you know personally is your Masonic idol.
So there's going to be two, and I do the, hey, George Washington's the easy way out. I hate being like that, but
Correct.
So number one, and this one is kind of along that vein, but there's a story behind it, is Most Worshipful Brother Harry Truman. I did my Royal Schofield Society masterpiece on Harry Truman, RSS number 12 for anyone else.
It was very nice.
Made it into the inductory class, which was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And when this came up and you have to do your masterpiece, the guidelines are pretty set out of what you have to do, all the steps you get through the Royal Schofield Society, except the masterpiece.
Yep.
It's very gray because, it's something that's personal to you. It's something that gives back to the fraternity. And I had the worst time trying to figure something out because I was just full steam ahead, checking the boxes.
Oh, yeah.
Doing all this stuff and loving it. And I just was sitting on idle for like 3 weeks, had no idea. And I saw a post from one of the Masonic things I follow, and it said, Most Worshipful Brother Harry Truman. And I'm like, I had no clue that one of our presidents, I found out more than one, were Grand Master of their state. And I got super excited about it. I started to do some research on it, and then made a video instead of a, standing up presentation, clips and different things to make a video presentation of this, because I thought in 2019, if I didn't know that he was a Grand Master along with President, maybe other people don't. So
yeah,
that was my big overarching
I
one.
didn't know he was a Grand Master.
I knew he was Brother Truman. I didn't know he was Most Worshipful Brother Truman. I did not know that either.
And he has an interview that says being Grand Master was the highest honor that he has had.
Wow.
And that's talking about the presidency and everything. So to me, that speaks volumes to our fraternity.
Right.
Somebody that's been the leader of the free world. It just blew my mind. And the second one, and to beat a dead horse a little bit, is Worship Brother Ryan Crisano. And I'm gonna put an asterisk beside this, because I could say Wade Bear, Rocky Bosley, Jack Barnhouse, Jess Raines, Chad Kaczynski. These guys are pillars, absolute pillars. And there are more people than we have time to name that have assisted me, whether it's questions and lending hands, something that has helped me along my path and made me the Mason that I am today. But I think that Ryan Crisano is the one right from the bat. He's always had my back. He's always pushed me to do more. He was the absolute worst mentor in the fact that he was the best mentor. It wasn't a, hey, learn this letter. We're learning this letter, and now we're going to learn why you did this and what. And I guess that he's turned me into that sort of good bad mentor, where it's like, hey, we're going to do this, but it's not going to be quick.
Yeah, you're not going to enjoy the process, but
you'll enjoy the results, not the process.
By the time we're done, you'll understand what just happened to you, and you'll probably have a better understanding of the degrees. So, that's the sort of thing that I was lucky enough to have him along the way, and the part of my installations as Master, DEO, and Deputy. And just anytime there's a big moment in my Masonic career, I'll say,
He's always there.
He's always there in one fashion or another. So, and I truly appreciate his friendship and being his brother.
Well, and I really like, you also mentioned someone that's pretty near and dear to our hearts with the podcast is Chad Kopinski.
Oh, yeah.
He reached out to me randomly. I posted in some group chat for Kansas because he just got done doing the Kansas, Masonic convention or whatever they call it. And I posted in there, I was like, hey, I promise we're not going to blow up anything in this chat. Thanks for having us. Because I found myself, I was trying to, do the marketing, like you said, because it's all, free.
Sure.
And I ended up in a clandestine Grand Lodge of Kansas page.
Yeah, and there's a couple of those floating around.
They're nine times out of 10, if you are on a state's Masonic page, it's clandestine. It's 9 times out of 10. I mean, so I looked at it and I was like, they're really pushing selling whiskey and cigars and jewelry.
Yeah.
And I went, this is starting to feel a little scammy. So I had a guy on TikTok. His name was Master Sneezy. He's a Kansas Mason, and he was talking about it in a video. I was like, hey, by the way, does your Grand Lodge really push cigars and whiskey? And he goes, no. No, we don't. That one's fake. We can't do anything about it. And then he sent me the link to the real one. So I joined it and was like, hey, I want to thank Master Sneezy and all this stuff. And this guy posts on there, I'm Master Sneezy. Nice to meet you. And, whatever. And then all of a sudden, looking down on there, Chad goes, I'm from Ohio. We need to talk, ...
Right.
The first words in his message to me is, hey, I'm from Ohio. I know Charlie Murphy, Mark Allred, Jim Hall. Like, he starts just naming all these people. I was like, I believe you.
Right.
You're legit.
If you know Charlie Murphy, you're a real Mason.
Yeah.
That is my test when I go to lodges to see if I'm going to know these guys, is if they know Charlie Murphy,
we're good.
We're good. We're kosher.
But he sent me, I can't even tell you how many, because he's really big into Masonic podcasts, like in general. And I know he helps out a lot of us. So he's, he's kind of like the godfather of us around here.
Yeah, exactly.
Taking us under his wing. But he sent me, I can't even tell you how many different ones. I mean, just episodes and names of ones to watch. And he's like, I'm not going to give you my opinion on any of them. He's like, but you need to listen to these and don't copy them, but see what you like, see what you don't like, get your groove so that way going in, like, you don't want to be like this or you want to be kind of this and I can't tell you how much it was nice to sit down, because our first episode was all about that, was World War II. And who hasn't done an episode about Masonry and World War II?
Right.
But it was nice to be able to sit there having him, showing us that and telling us, like, hey, we did do this differently than how someone else did it.
Sure.
So it was just really awesome. He has been nothing but good for our show, and I'm finding out that he, helped, you know him really well too, and I know he's really big with the Royal Schofield Society too. So
So since we've talked about it now a couple of times, what was your experience like in the Royal Schofield Society?
Well, so I'm going to say very good and a little bad. And Royal Schofield people, don't cringe. There, it was a different time, we'll say.
It was first starting.
So my first experience with Royal Schofield, there was a post, and at the time Josh Beasley was doing the social media, and he posted, it was Gene Wilder, and I can't remember the Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And he just put, it's alive. And, there was a Royal Schofield picture. And I was sitting there, I'm like, what is this? I've never heard of the Royal Schofield Society. So I start digging, and I eventually got into the back end, like, beta system of Grandview. I don't know how. I just, like, for 3 days, I'm digging through, where am I at? And I was like zooming in on pictures to copy links. And, if I did this much work, I would be a millionaire at other stuff, but I'm digging into Royal Schofield. So I got in and I got through the first initial test, and I shot a message on their Facebook, and I said, hey, it says there's this certificate you get, and I don't know if I'm like supposed to tell you or you just give it to me. And Chad messaged back. He's like, hi, this is Chad Kopinski, and I don't know how you're in this because it's in beta testing and we've only released it to 4 or 5 people. He's like, but this is how you'll get it eventually, and I'm glad you're here. And so that was my initial with it. But where I was going with good and bad is my initial thought with the Schofield Society is I'm going to be all knowing as a Mason now. I'm going to know everything about Masonry because I'm doing this deep dive into Masonry. And what I realized was I'm not
Right.
at all, not even close. But what I realized was what I found out was what I thought of the fraternity.
Yes.
It gave me a clarity of my own thoughts on the fraternity. And it really helps me when you ask some of those why questions, how to answer and not sound like a fumbling Mason trying to figure out the answer. It gave me a, why do I do this? Why do I love this type of thing? And on the flip side, I'll say, when I say part of the bad is it was the first year. So when I was frustrated because I was so eager and excited to move forward, they were still figuring out how everything pieced together and how, it wasn't until I was a regent in the society and realized that all the papers you send in all get graded by the regents. So
Yeah.
It doesn't happen overnight. Guys have other lives and things to do. And where I'm sitting there frustrated that, it's been 4 days and nobody's messaged me back. What is going on here?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that there was a finite amount of people trying to go through this. So once that was brought to my attention and, I'd made it through into the introductory class, it's such an honor. I have it hanging on my wall, and it's something that I will value the rest of my Masonic lifetime.
That's great. And we're fortunate enough here at this lodge to have several Masters of the Craft, including the Dean, Charlie Murphy himself.
Yeah.
And it is something that I intend to do in my Masonic career. It's just right now I'm a little busy. I've been criticized for all the things I've been taking on lately. I can't take on another one now.
I'm on my final step of it. I pretty much have my masterpiece done. I actually have what is probably, funny enough, probably the easiest thing for 99% of Masons, maybe about 75%. I have a lot of trouble traveling, and I still have to give back a lecture or all the charges. Other than that, everything else is done. I'm just like, when do I? Oh, wait, you're going to work 60 hours a week every week for the next 12 weeks. Oh, well, I guess we're not traveling anywhere anytime soon.
We could go by East Palestine Lodge.
Yeah, we could.
We would love to have you.
I'd like to.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, bro.
Yeah.
So a couple of unscripted questions that Gabe doesn't know about. One of the questions I did want to ask you, so you talking about East Palestine, when we're talking about that, we're talking about the same East Palestine that had something pretty bad happen to it in history.
Yeah.
How are things going with that? I mean, I know we don't hear about it in the news anymore, and we have moved on to other things in the media cycle, but we genuinely care because you were our brothers. We were hearing some stuff on Facebook and everything about you guys and how you guys are kind of working with stuff, and it's amazing to hear those things, but we haven't heard anything in a while.
Yeah, well, for everybody out there, we did have a train derailment, and there was some pretty nasty vinyl chloride types of chemicals that end up needed to get burnt off before they exploded and caused real physical damage to a lot of the area. And we were everybody was out of town for, I want to say, close to 5 or 6 days until this was all done and said with. We were all living in Boardman hotels, which was weird. Palestine. We were in like 3 different hotels. So, we saw some people we knew, other people were across town. You'd think we could get together by car, but we're like, oh, they're at the Holiday Inn.
We're not going there
again. Like, we all have our cars there, but nobody left. We just sat there.
We're just Lord of Flies it.
Yeah.
These are my people,
But, right now we're doing very well. It's been a very hectic ride, a ton of media, which we're a very small town, kind of rural town that I didn't care for the media, like, get out of here.
Right.
And for some reason, media tends to find the most unscrupulous people to be on the media.
Right.
So when you see these people, it's like, this person, like, they're crazy. Like, they're literally crazy. Like, I wouldn't trust them just walking across the road, let alone asking questions on CNN. Right? So that happened, and there's a ton of media backlash and all kinds of things, and wild hashtags. East Palestine Chernobyl was the one that really, I shook my, I'm like literally, I'm looking outside at Palestine. There's no Chernobyl. I mean, I have all my normal appendages and no extra eye. So
your guy counters and going brr.
Yeah.
Third eye sprouting out yet.
Right. And we are glad and grateful that the EPA has been here, and they're continuing to test and retest, and super cautious about it, and really holding Norfolk, really holding them accountable for what's happened, because it would be very easy for them to say, well, hey, it happened and, nobody got hurt. So, but they are staying on them, and any construction that happens, there's multiple tests that have to be done with soil samples when any of that's removed and changed. And, it's really, really kind of, in my eyes, been a blessing in disguise. And there was a lot of tough time to go through it, but because of all of the damage, and I will say, maybe mental damage, damage to businesses and their availability to sell their goods and do that Norfolk has really had to invest in East Palestine. Because of it, they owe that to East Palestine, and it's helped. As somebody that's a past councilman in East Palestine, we are in the Rust Belt area. Not a lot of businesses coming in, trying to grab onto something, and this has really been a blessing in disguise in my mind. There are other people that say it's horrible, and it was for a time, but I'm living it right here, and as of right now, I'm relatively healthy. Blood pressure is an issue, but that's not really not because of the train.
I know
that's probably more McDonald's and Wendy's, but right now, that as a citizen of East Palestine, I really see this being almost a reset button for East Palestine, and it's exciting to see what may happen in the future.
Well, that is
good.
It's awesome that you're able to see, because, we, like I said, we saw a lot of stuff through the media, and like you said, it's always the worst possible people, but
right.
It's really nice to hear that things are going in an upward direction. It's not, you're going to always hear the bad in the news all the time. It's nice to hear that maybe there's some good that's coming out of it. Maybe Absolutely. It will eventually pay off. And we're very happy that you guys are A-okay.
Yeah.
It was definitely something we were praying for, and we were talking about here at our lodge. I remember Charlie talking about it, and
thank you.
So
appreciate that.
And my guard unit in Norwalk, we thought we were going to have to come out there and rescue you guys.
Oh,
I was insisting that we come and safeguard East Palestine Lodge.
Yeah.
When I first started to be like, there's a place we're gonna go to and make sure that it's okay first.
Yeah.
So, well, no, we're like Sam said, we're glad that all the brothers are okay and that things are doing good.
Thank you.
So, we're gonna start transitioning into the last part of the interview, which is some kind of feel good questions, some kind of questions to leave something good and pick your brain a little bit.
Yeah.
And my first question with the setup to that is, if you are one of the old curmudgeon-y past masters in the future, and you see like many, many years in the future, and you see a young man who may very soon be starting his Masonic career, or a brand new EA candidate, or a brand new Master Mason even, what advice would you want to give to them? What advice would you want to say to someone who is just starting their Masonic career, or just starting to think about taking the steps to starting their Masonic career?
So that's a twofold question. And I'll answer the obvious first one is the gentleman that is looking to take the first step into Freemasonry. When that question comes across, however it may come across, I'm going to let him know that, I would love to say it as well as Right Worship Brother Bill Carter says about the, internal flame that we have in each one of us. But every time I try that, I just completely train wreck that speech. He does so well at saying that. And every time I listen to it, man, I'm so pumped about Masonry, and I'm going to say this verbatim. And every time I say it, it's like, man, I have a fat tongue. I can't do it. So I'm going to tell them about Jim Hall before Masonry, Jim Hall after Masonry. And Jim Hall before Masonry was so shy, so not willing to get into a crowd of people because it was just absolutely crushing anxiety to be around people that I didn't know. Even if I knew that they were in the same vein, whether, at that time, whether they're in sports or whatnot, I just couldn't put myself in that situation. And taking that leap into lodge and talking about making that rough ashlar a little more perfect. That was the thing that Freemasonry gave me off the top, is the comfort in knowing who I am, knowing that I have people behind me that care about me and love me, and knowing that if I go into a situation and fail, I still have that safety net behind me that will always be there for me. And that's the sort of thing that Freemasonry has given me. That's my own personal experience with it. As to the new Mason, I would tell him the sky's the limit, and don't let any past master, anyone hold you down in that sense. There is so many times that this is the way we used to do it. And you know what? I'm 5 years out. 2019 I was master, and now 2024, I'm thinking 2019 looked pretty good. Right? It happens. It happens. Game is going to happen to you so fast, and you'll be grumpy and be like, "Wait a dang second, this isn't what we're doing." No, and you know what?
Doing this.
Are you sure about that?
I don't know. And the most important thing is, Sam, I'm going to say to you, because you're not the master right now. If I were to say to you, no, Sam, you can't do this, this, and this because of X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, and this is just completely speculating whether or not this ever, maybe you're the next Grand Master. Maybe you're the person that, I know that's like a hairy, whoa, wait a minute. But maybe you're the guy that solves membership problem. Maybe you're right. Whatever that is. And if I'm the guy that said, no, you can't do this and this and this, maybe it never happens.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I unintentionally swayed your boat away from something that may be the greatest thing that happens in Freemasonry. And I'm not saying that, Sam, because I think you are or not. You may.
Oh, no. I get you.
But, and I refer back to, there's a post I've seen on Facebook. It's an older gentleman with an entered apprentice, and it looks like some Norman Rockwell painting.
Yeah.
And it says, train him well, he may be Grand Master one day.
Right.
And that's the sort of thing. I don't want to ever put shade onto somebody's ideas or thoughts, because that may be the next breakthrough in Masonry. So I say the sky's the limit, and break that glass and go higher than myself or you guys or anyone else ever did.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic.
And that's good, because what I hope to do as a future, as a soon to be grumpy past master, is if I disagree with something with let's say 20 years down the line, and there's some young upstart Mason like myself, rather than just shooting it down, I may take him aside and say, hey, this is what I think about this. These are my critiques of what you're trying to do, but we'll go with it. I'll give you the tools to try to help you do what you want to do, and here's my advice about it.
I've been telling these guys for years that when it's our time to be sitting on the sidelines with our canes, and the young guys go, this is what we want to do, and I'm going to stand up and I'm going to go, back in my day, we tried that.
Right.
It didn't work. However, you boys might have a better opportunity with it. Let me know how I can help, in those words, and then sit down. But I actually would like to kind of redirect real quick. You know, you were talking about how you, pre-Masonry, Brother Hall was kind of shy and wasn't outgoing. How did we go from that guy to the host of one of the most popular podcasts in the state of Ohio, if not everywhere? I have to tell you, brother, we have been talking recently with many, many other podcasters. They all know you.
Well, thank you so much. And I don't know if it's most popular.
It's very popular.
I do the best I can, and I'm grateful that I have so many wonderful guests that are willing to share their Masonic stories. But you know, the start of that is I returned my Master Mason return. And for everybody listening, that's letting your lodge know that you're proficient in that degree. And so you can go on and, you know, maybe take an officer's chair, or if it's not that degree, move to the next degree. And I did that. My first 2 degrees I worked with was from Brother Ryan Crisano. 3rd degree, I worked the whole way through with Ryan Crisano again. And then the night of, he does basement sealing for new homes. And he called and he said, hey, I've just ran over my product. There's something went wrong and he's not going to make it. Wade Bear, who was master right before me, is going to do that. And Wade did absolutely perfect with it, you know. But I'm used to working with Ryan one-on-one.
Right.
Wade's a different person. He says things a little slower, a little faster, you know, and you know how easy it is when you're doing ritual, you know, an eye raise like that can train wreck you, you know.
Absolutely.
What were you talking about, right? So I made it through and I finished, and I'm thinking I'm going to have a stroke. My vein in my neck is just blowing up. and I sat down and I thought, you know, I'm like, I did it. I'm a Master Mason. I set out to do what I wanted to do. And I don't know, you know, I was just kind of in awe of all of these men that had went through the chairs and learned and was proficient in this work. And I just couldn't imagine doing that. And it wasn't 2 or 3 meetings later, the junior steward wasn't there, and they asked if I'd like to sit there, and there aren't any lines in that chair.
Yeah,
so I can just sit down and you know, okay. And
it's a trap.
Yeah, that's 7 years later, your master.
Yeah, right.
Where the heck was Admiral Akbar there? You know, right? So, you know, I sat there a few more times, and there was just a little bit of, you know, pride, you know, like, hey, look, I have a position. I'm kind of, you know, you get to wear a jewel, and it's a little bit exciting, and it's really weird that whole situation happened, and I didn't know what was happening. And this is the beauty in Freemasonry. We talk about your rough ashlar and chipping away those rough edges of the stone and becoming as close to a perfect ashlar as you can, because we'll never be perfect. I didn't see it happening until the last night in the chair as master. And I sat there, and there were a few other people speaking on various topics that, you know, obviously I took the time to check out on. It was just, I took just a moment and thought about my journey, thought about the ride through the chairs and the different things that I had to do and learn and be a part of and presentations of. And that was my own personal journey's aha moment of, wow, look at what Freemasonry did for me. I didn't even know was happening.
Right.
It was chipping away those pieces, and all of those past masters and brothers ahead of me and behind me that were, challenging me to do more and challenging me to be better because of how good they were, and trying to stand on the shoulders of giants like that. And the whole time it was making me better, and I didn't even realize it. And by that point, by that realization, it clicked like, wow, you know what? If I could do this, why can't I run for city council? Why can't I do, and that wasn't the reason I started a podcast. That was just because I like to talk.
Right.
But, but that was that aha moment of like, hey, you know what? The worst that could happen in anything is somebody says no, or I don't get elected, or I don't,
we move on.
It's going to be okay. The world will continue to move, and, I'm going to be all right. And that's what Freemasonry did. And that's how I kind of got from point A to point B in Jim Hall.
That's really cool.
That is. And that's...
I like to think that the fraternity practices what it preaches. And I think that was definitely one. If I wouldn't have grew up in DeMolay, and I would not have grown up around the lodge and had such, I grew up with Charlie Murphy and Mark Allred and all these guys. These guys were my mentors I got to look up to, and I went, I kind of want to be like that. Like, maybe not like that, but I definitely would be, I want that ability. And I just went, how do I get up there and, how do I get up there and talk to these people? And they went, 90% of them aren't even paying attention to a word that you're saying. Just imagine them in their underwear, and you can say anything you want as long as you phrase it in a good way. And I went,
as long as you phrasing.
Love it.
So, thank you so much for your time, brother. And we really appreciate you being on here. So we want to ask you one final question. And this is always the question that a lot of guys like to think about, and we've gotten some really interesting answers on this one. Is, what would you like to leave behind for Masons of the future? 100 years from now, when the fraternity is still going strong like it always has, what do you want Masons of the future to think about when they think of you? Or what do you want to leave for the fraternity in the future? What kind of makes your mind think about how you want to be viewed, or what you want to leave behind for Masons of the future?
There are two things with that. The part about being viewed, and that's kind of a, how do you want to be seen, portrayed? And, I think that I want to be viewed as somebody that was all in Freemasonry, that did everything he could to forward the fraternity as best that he could. And when you get to that 100-year mark, and I truly believe that we will be going strong at 100 years down the road, if by some chance the name Jim Hall comes up, or the Traveling Man podcast comes up, I hope that little bit of Freemasonry time did its best part to shine the light of Freemasonry a little brighter to the rest of the world.
I love it.
That's really poignant, especially for those of us who are engaging in this wonderful tool for Freemasonry, of showing the light of Freemasonry around the world through the internet. We really like to hear an answer like that, because that's really what it's about.
Absolutely.
So we really thank you, brother, for being on. Thank you, Craftsman, for joining us with Brother Jim Hall tonight. He's always been incredible with his podcast. And Brother Hall, for our craftsmen who may not know, how can they get in touch with you? How can they find you? And how can they listen to some of your great content as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, my own personal Jim Hall is on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's a pretty bland name, so you have to look for the bald head. Good luck. But if you're going to look for the podcast, we do have a website, the Traveling Man Masonic Podcast.com. I do have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. I have a TikTok page, but I rarely post on it because I just don't. I mostly just lurk on it. But but you can't find me there. Message me, if you'd like to be a guest, if you have any ideas, I am more than willing to talk about that there. So thank you.
Well, that's great. Craftsman, make sure you go check out the Traveling Man podcast. And we appreciate you tuning in to the Third Degree Masonic podcast. And remember, craftsmen,
keep your working tools in order and always be on the left ones.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast do not reflect those of the Grand Lodge of Ohio, its officers, or any of its jurisdictions. They only reflect those of the hosts or guests.